When you see vegan term, when you're buying something, a bag or a clothes or shoes, when you see vegan, think twice, dig deeper, make sure you're not being sold plastic, because I don't think real vegan lifestyle aligns with plastic. Welcome to the episode 2 of Leathertainment podcast on the go. After the amazing discussion we had in the episode 1 about leather myths, now we're happy to see you back here, which means you want to hear more leather talk. We're very excited about it. So we're going to dive into a very controversial and annoying topic, I would say, in the industry, that starts with getting more popular term, vegan leather. Florian, what does that even mean?
My spikes go up.
What does that even mean?
Yeah, I think the question is to everyone, what is vegan leather? What do you believe is vegan leather? Because there's a lot of mislabeling happening and there is a lot of misunderstanding. And the best episode in my life about vegan leather was a discussion that I had with my neighbor who was fully convinced that vegan leather is real leather, so made from animals, like a skin, and just using chemicals which are coming from non-animal products, and which would, in the real term, be the only real vegan leather, because leather, in the meanwhile, is protected. The term leather is, meanwhile, protected in 2 countries where they say it must come from an animal origin to be called leather. But in other countries, there is not this protection. So it's absolutely fascinating to dive deeper into what does it mean? And we call them alternative materials. Right. And very often they are made with petroleum. So it's plastic-based. And we all know, in the meanwhile, what plastic is doing to the environment. And in the meanwhile, we don't have even the knowledge what does plastic to do in ourselves, but we now know that if you live in the Western world, we all have microplastic in our organism, and it goes back even up into the brain. So it will be an interesting talk about now, what is vegan leather? Do you know what vegan leather is?
Well, I am confused, still confused. I only can think of it as a paradox. What is vegan cannot be leather. What's leather cannot be vegan. Yet this is being flaunted as the virtuous material choice today, when, as you say, we're trying to eliminate plastics because we know it's a problem. That's why Starbucks don't give you a plastic straw anymore. It's not good for animals. It's not good for environment. They are bursting out of everywhere on earth as the plastic waste. And yet now we're being shown this vegan leather label as a solution. But
the Holy Grail.
Yeah, Holy Grail. And they're pushing the plastic under that label. The problem is we're being tricked. It's an illusionist game. Like, they're distracting you with something you may like while pushing the thing underneath that you don't want. But we would love to address this from many points that will actually make you rethink the choices you make. I think the main underlying point of this episode is going to be, when you see vegan term, when you're buying something, a bag or a clothes or shoes, when you see vegan, think twice, dig deeper, make sure you're not being sold plastic, because I don't think real vegan lifestyle aligns with plastic. What do you think?
Yeah, I think that is really where the challenge is as well for the end consumer, for you out there listening to us. This is where the challenge is, because now they put labels on, like it's apple, it's pineapple, it's mushroom, it's cactus. But then how much of this is really in there, and how much of alternative materials, and in that regards, very often petroleum-based, so plastic materials, are mixed into this to make it durable. And they always mimic leather, and there is a reason behind it. And it's very easy to understand. Leather has value. Leather is expensive, and when we speak to people, and as well the young generation, you all understand that real leather has its price. You want to be able to buy it once you have the money, available, but for the moment you don't. So you look for alternative materials to be able to then at least look alike like leather. So they take from the value of leather and they make it expensive, yeah, almost as leather, sometimes even more expensive than real leather.
Even though it costs much cheaper.
And it's cost cheaper. And if they would call it plastic, would you spend this amount of money that the big brands ask for plastic? You would not. But as they call it, with beautiful terms, alternative leather or vegan leather, you're happy to buy this because you believe that you do something good for the environment, because there is a link in saying a vegan lifestyle is good for the environment. And that is where the trick is, and where we need to look again, what are we doing here as humans? Is that really the right choice, or can we have a different choice?
Absolutely. So this is why the vegan label should be the orange flag. Like, take a pause, dig deeper, read deeper, see what actually is. Read the label. Is it PU, polyurethane, plastic? Then if it is, then it's not truly vegan, because it's going to go into earth, hurting the environment that animals live in. So is that true veganism? I believe most of my vegan friends will not agree with choosing plastic under the vegan label. But again, I also believe that there is a need for an honest alternative for vegan lifestyle, for vegan people. I have vegan friends, they don't want to use anything animal based, and I have huge respect for it. So they don't want to use leather. Perfect. But they're also not going to choose plastic knowingly. So what can they do? It's already hard to live a vegan lifestyle, because, it's really hard to stick with that requirements. So I'm all for efforts that are trying to develop an alternative that's bio-based. It's coming from plants and sustainable ways. Some of these terms try to head that direction, cactus or pineapple, piñatex. But in the beginning, most of them had a lot of polyurethane to keep them together, make them durable as binding agents. As long as they try to improve and eventually they accomplish that, like 100% bio-based material, I think that deserves the true vegan leather label as an alternative for these people to choose. But again, that puts a burden on the consumer. And if you really want to choose that, you need to do your research. Is it really bio-based alternative materials, or are you being sold plastic with this sexy term vegan leather?
Yeah, and I think what really is a challenge now is that in our first episode, where we were looking into this a little bit, like how much leather is used and how much leather is not used anymore. And we are at the point now where we replaced leather. So we are all looking into bio-based materials. So if we want something, we want it ideally bio-based. This is why they call it vegan, or they call it cactus, or they call it apple, or they call it pineapple, whatever is the ingredient. But then it's very often plastic. So now what we have done is that we replaced a bio-based material, leather, by an industrial produced product, because this has grown on an animal. Yeah. And now we use this and we made leather out of this. This is 100% bio-based at the beginning, of course, with the chemicals, and we go down, because as well, we need to make it durable and long lasting. But then the alternatives, they really start from scratch, and they need to do something to make it durable. And that is as well something that we observe, or that the feedback from the market is, all these alternative materials are not that long lasting. So in the specifications, they are lower. And now the question comes as well, what is better for us as humans, and what is better for the globe? Is it better to buy something? You remember that you said in the first episode, there is a shoemaker who is repairing since 60 years the same pair of leather shoes. Is that better? Or is it better to have alternative materials, very often made with plastic, and then they end up 5 years, latest 10 years, somewhere in the garbage? So there is as well a balance for us humans. What is the right decision for me?
Yeah, that's a big challenge in this information age that we're bombarded with stuff. So it's a great point. Like, I walk in a shoe store and I see this full aisle says vegan, right? There's a lot of shoes. Now, automatically in my psychology, again, most of this marketing is psychological tricks to short circuit some of your concepts to make you think less but feel good. So when I see vegan, even I'm a meat eater, I'm like, oh, that sounds cool. I'm gonna look at it, and if I don't think deeper than that, I'm gonna end up buying a plastic thing, which 6 months to a year will fall apart, and it's gonna be a problem to the world. But think about from a vegan standpoint, is that truly what you want to do with your choices? Because you don't want to choose materials that's coming from animals. You care about the earth, you care about animals. Is that really what's happening when you choose that plastic shoe? It's not, and it's an invention of a concept to make us feel good about this choice of plastic. I think it has been done with the recycle concept, decades now, but it's becoming more clear now. More of us understand recycling is not what we think it is. When we use plastic and throw it in the recycle, we feel like, okay, I've done my part. It's cool. Now that's getting old. We understand most of the plastics we throw to recycle is not actually being recycled, but the plastic industry needs another term to make us feel good, feel conscious about this choice, and it's vegan. That's why I can't emphasize this is enough. Like when you see this vegan flag, just it could be the first clue that you're gonna be lied to use your virtuous beliefs to make a choice. Just think twice, read deeper, and understand what you're choosing is not plastic.
Yeah, and we were growing up, or we grew into a society where we buy something and then we throw it away very quickly. But we were not forced to think about what's happening at the end of life of such a product. And when we look back, there was more responsibility, there was more repair possibilities. So there was as well taking care of things because money was scarce. It was not like available like this. So you needed to be careful with, if you had one pair of shoe, you were happy to have one. Now many of us have 5, 10, 20 pairs of shoes, huh? So we don't need to look into repairing anymore because then I buy a new one. Yeah, but back then, our ancestors, they had one pair of shoes if they were lucky, and they repaired it for 60 years. So what is more sustainable? And I think this is as well where we need to think back and be more cautious. What I see fortunately happening is now that what I would love to happen is that we reuse all the hides from animals that we have eaten. So if you eat meat, as well buy leather, which is a logical interlinked action to happen. And only if the world is running out of leather, then what is an alternative there? And we now see slowly initiatives coming in with new materials which are 100% bio-based. Yeah, and I think that is very, very interesting because as well those will biodegrade in a non-toxic way. At least I hope. And they are grown like mycelium. They are mushrooms growing now into cotton, but it's as well an expensive material. Yeah. So that's as well something where we need to be aware that, yes, it's good to have those alternatives, but don't expect them necessarily to be cheap, 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 cheap. They will be cheap in the moment when there is a lot of plastic involved, because you can as well get mycelium, so the mushrooms, growing into polyester, but the polyester will not biodegrade. So what is missing as well in our society is new studies at universities. And I heard at some furniture universities, they don't now go into this, but where is transportation, where is the shoe industry, where is the fashion industry, reverse designing, where we design from the end of life of the product. And then we see, how can I make this product easy disassemble so that I can have access to the material again so that we can reuse it.
Right. Or it doesn't become a problem for Earth.
For the environment, yeah. Exactly.
That's a huge concept. I think we need to start thinking more towards thinking the end of the product, like what's going to happen, where it's going to go, and how it's going to disappear or reused. And I think leather has a lot of options for it, and plastic don't. The one big challenge is the big names in our corporate world today flaunts this story of alternative materials under the plastic remarketing. A great example is Apple. Like, we all respect and follow these big brands. Tesla, Apple said they removed leather from their collection about a year and a half ago. They introduced something called soft woven, which failed within a year. They discontinued it, and now they don't know what to do. And Tesla has been selling this plastic under vegan leather on their car seats, which has enormous problems for users and experience. For businesses, it made sense because it's cheaper. It means more profit, but it's not really what you think it is when you hear the vegan leather term. But unfortunately, it's used in a greenwashing sense by these huge corporations we all look up to. So how do we address that part of the problem?
Yeah, I think that is a big problem, because as well, very often people don't know what is leather and what is the other thing, because the other things are given fancy names: veganza,
Leatherette.
Nulux, leatherette, whatever, and
And
then
they most sound like
or
leather.
canvas, yeah, and they sound lovely
Yeah.
because, and they look nice because they look like leather. And when we look into the car industry, for example, many people believe they are driving a leather interior, and it's not. So people are not educated enough. And then the question is, do we as humans even care? Yeah, about what am I buying? And this is what we try as well with this podcast, to bring you to a point where you care about what is my choice here and what can I buy? Do I want to buy something that is environmentally harmful, or do I want to buy something that is not so harmful or not even harmful to the environment, and which is not harmful to myself because I buy it? And that is as well a lot of misconception, and I think, and I understand it makes life of people challenging. And in our first podcast, I said I'm 25 years now in the industry. I know about leather, and this is where I feel comfortable. And I know leather, and I can probably touch and feel the difference, but there are as well materials which are so well mimicking leather that I get tricked myself, and I would probably need to cut to see, is there a fabric behind as a carrier, or is it real leather? So the copy is so well made so that people don't understand it anymore. And then they as well bring the price for these plastics so high that you believe you buy real leather, and then you're sitting in your thing and you're like, oh, this is beautiful and I love it, and not questioning what is it and how was it produced.
I think we're being coerced into this choice. When you go to a dealer in US, you ask, like, is it leather? The guy is like, oh, no, it's better than leather. And the conversation is, oh, look at this, screen. It's 20-inch screen. That's, they distract you to something else by lying. It's better than leather because it's plastic. They don't want to talk about it. Why? Because it's cheaper. It's more profitable. They don't have to reduce the price of the car while putting something subpar. But it's important for us now to demand something like, hey, I'm buying a luxury car, which I had a weird experience in Lexus in Dallas, in a city that loves its leathers. I visited 3 dealers so they could show me one car out of hundreds in the lots that has real leather seats. The third one had only one. I was able to see and feel a real leather in Lexus, which then I'm like, is this really a luxury brand? Because to me, a luxury car comes with a real leather.
Yeah.
But it came with Nulux that looks like leather, and the guy said it's better than leather. But I think if we consumers are like, no, I'm eating meat, I create all this leather, raw hides, and it's a responsible choice for me to use leather, choose leather wherever I can, which is upholstery, jacket, bags, shoes, you name it, like just notebooks. Because it's durable, I can reuse it. I don't have to buy many more plastic. I don't need to create demand for these plastics. It's good for me, good for environment, but it starts with us to make a little bit effort to dig deeper, understand, and demand this thing from the companies. Otherwise, they go the easy route.
And that is a very good point that you are just mentioning. It makes you feel good, and that is really one of the big differentiators. When you have real leather, it's it's giving you a feeling of well-being because it's supporting your well-being, where other materials, particularly when they have a high plastic content, they don't. So it's as well important, and that is where I'm really mad with the fashion industry, that they bring more and more polyester fibers now into fabrics where there was no plastic before. In jeans, you find now a lot of polyester, and they call it stretch. It's for your comfort. It's bullshit. It's just making a bigger margin for them. But every time that we wash the jeans, we wash microfibers into the river, and then with this it ends into the water. And that is where we want to protect the animals in the oceans, but actually we don't, because we buy more and more the fashion which has polyester content. So it's as well important for us as an end consumer to look more thoroughly into the labels. How was it produced? And is there plastic, elastane, PU, polyurethane, whatever in there? And just leave it in the shop. We have the strength and the power to change the system, but we need to want to do it. And if we don't care, the industry will just invade us with more plastic. There is a forecast for 2040 that we will double or triple our plastic consumption worldwide, which is against every knowledge that we have in the meanwhile. And I'm shocked to read those numbers.
It's crazy. Like, we're trying everything to remove plastics. And in Hong Kong, you go to a hotel this year, they don't even give you the toothbrush and, one-use plastics. But yet, we're projected to double or triple our plastic content because they're innovating tricky ways to sneak more plastics into everything you use. It's a big problem, but I think it definitely gives us a homework to do a little bit more understanding. Take a pause, question what are you told, like what are you sold in the social media, in the marketing, which we can't rely and take in face value anymore.
Yeah, I think the real challenge for all of us is we have an overkill of information in the meanwhile, and then it is very often challenging to find the authenticity of what are we buying, because they try to disguise, or the industry tries to disguise as good as it can, whatever they do wrong, so that we buy it and that we fall for it. And be informed, dig deeper, get curious, and ask questions. And as well have the guts to walk out of a shop, or as well leave your online shop when you find that there's plastic in there. Leave it behind, and even tell them, I'm not buying this because it has plastic. I will come back when you took the plastic out. Cotton was cotton 100% in the past. Silk, wool, cashmere, whatever it is, wood. Now we put all this plastic in there where it was not needed before.
That's an important point. Like, tell them, give the feedback, because brands always listen, like what the trend is, what consumer wants, right? If you don't say it, you just leave it there, they might not know. They might say, like, sales are going down. But if you provide the feedback why you're leaving it on the shelf, it's like, oh, people want to choose more earthy materials. They want
Yes.
cotton, they
Yes.
want wool,
Yes.
they want the wood, they want the leather. So they're gonna go back and reshuffle how they make things.
Correct.
Because, at the end, it's for profit. Like, you don't sell, you don't make money. If people want something, and if they know people want that thing, they'll put it back in. But if people don't know what to want or what's the right choice, then they will choose the cheapest material they could find because it's more profit.
Yeah.
So I think it's a tricky game in the choosing of materials now, but it's more important than ever, especially the direction we are heading, overconsumption, the problems of environment and waste. But more of us are eager to make that right choice and, be the best version of ourselves. The moment you hear this information and you do a little bit thinking, stepping back, you arrive with the right conclusion. It's not really that difficult. It just needs a little bit more conscious approach.
Yeah, and then I think it's very important as well. Look into the product that you want to buy. Does it exist as a leather product? Maybe you make it your first choice, because that's as well a very interesting approach to nowadays, to say it's not about replacing leather. It is about replacing plastics. And I think that's as well important. I'm not per se against plastic. Very often it's claims to be recyclable, but then as humans, we forgot to create industries which really recycle these plastics. And it's extremely complicated because we have those different kinds of plastic to then recycle it. So, as we in the first podcast we said, there is no waste pile of leather. So maybe really you can reconsider your choice and look into, is it maybe the right thing to go and first buy leather, and then is that product available in leather, or can I at least get the products that I want as 100% natural based?
Exactly, the true vegan
Yeah.
alternatives.
Correct.
Like, try to avoid plastic, because that's what we're doing in everywhere in the world now. Well, this is a good segue into the next episode. I think we need to look deeper into the legacy of leather to understand how this material has been part of human life, the civilization, and today we don't see a problem of leather, but that's a episode in itself. So I can't wait to talk about that in the next episode after a quick break.
Thank you, Volkan.
Thank you.